Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Iamamiwhoami album, Blue. Iamamiwhoami is the once anonymous synth and electropop project spearheaded by singer-songwriter Yona Lee, who popularly led up to the release of her debut album under this name with a series of music videos. Mysterious, artful, and immaculately produced music videos. Personally, I felt these videos were a little bit of a crutch that the music kind of leaned on, but in an age of Odd Future and The Onward and Death Grips, a lot of musical artists these days are sort of multimedia artists, with the visual component of their art being just as important to the narrative as the sonic component. In that sense, Iamamiwhoami isn't guilty of anything that a million other artists these days aren't already guilty of to some degree. And besides that, the appeal of Iamamiwhoami's music really came through once I sat down and listened to the record Kin as a whole. This record was some shiny, well-produced, and straightforward synthetic pop music with some kind of nasally eccentric lead vocals. And some pretty good songwriting too. Stylistically, this record pulled from a lot of current trends in indie-tronica like M83, Bat for Lashes, but this project also pulled from some people who I consider to be modern greats like Bjork and The Knife. Lee was able to strip back some of their more abstract ideas and distill their sounds down into its catchiest elements and just make some really blissful, infectious, but also whimsical and gorgeous pop music. A lot of things from the music of The Knife carries over into Iamamiwhoami's music, but on this sophomore record here, it would seem that she's taken influence from them on a lot of fronts other than their thirst for adventure. Stylistically, sonically, vocally, there really isn't that much daylight between Kin and Blue over here. It's almost as if both records were conceived in the same time period, or at least in the same mindset. However, the videos that Iamamiwhoami typically attaches to her music have progressed quite a bit. The visuals behind many of the tracks on Kin were dark, kind of unusual, unsettling to a degree, and I loved the very dark and light color palettes on these videos too. Blue, however, is much more blue, with a lot of imagery revolving around water, the ocean, undersea life, the beach, rocks, and sunsets too. The framing and the cinematography in these videos is gorgeous. I love the pastel color palettes here, and overall these videos just have a different feel and vibe and a sense of place. However, this kind of radical change doesn't translate over into most of the tracks on Blue. Aside from maybe a slight increase in reverb, which maybe to a degree gives the sense that these songs are immersed in something, it's kind of just business as usual as far as songwriting goes. The songs on Blue function much in the same way that they did on Kin. Kind of like how your car tomorrow morning will probably function the same way it did this morning when it drove you to work. And with that, I have to kind of say that there's not really that much to report here if you've heard Kin. Still, Iamamiwhoami does manage to dish out some pretty decent tracks. I like the song Fountain, which is one of the slower tracks on here. Has a very nimble melody despite its very slow burning pace. So pretty. Songs like Vista and Chasing Kites both have very peppy lead synth melodies, which are incredibly catchy. The verse melody the vocals bring forward on Chasing Kites is absolutely stellar. It's beautiful, and it's such a sing-along chorus, too. And with Vista, there are these wonderful, sort of classically influenced synth arpeggios hanging in the background on a great deal of that song, too. Just a really nice layer of detail in these already very dense synth pop songs. And they're almost dense to a fault. So thick with synthetic sounds, so thick with reverb, that when all of these songs are brought together, they become kind of homogeneous and melt into one another, just a little bit too much. There isn't much in the way of variety, sonic variety, on these songs, not like there was on Kin. Some songs are slower. One particular track toward the back end of the album has sort of a driving, distorted house beat to it. But even these tracks feel slightly homogenized with Lee's unchanging vocal style and just overbearing reverb. But keep in mind, with the exception of Blue Blue, which maybe I thought was just a little underwhelming, there isn't really anything about any one of these songs that is absolutely horrible. It's just that when they come together, the whole thing feels kind of bland and uniform. When I end up enjoying this record, it's really because of the songs at the core of a lot of these synth timbres and production. I feel like one of the few songs that's actually enhanced by this aesthetic is the song Hunting for Pearls, which actually kind of feels like I'm diving deep into the ocean with these glistening synth melodies that are urgent, they're epic, kind of like I'm listening to a poppy version of a soundtrack to an undersea exploration documentary. But aside from being kind of one-dimensional, the rest of the tracks on this record are either not that gripping or are just kind of safe for Iamamiwhoami at this point. This album really could use a few better songs, a bit more variety, and a fresh idea or two. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Iamamiwhoami, forever.